Press that. And so just a huge welcome to Rachel, and really thrilled that she's able to join us. Rachel can be here for the first half of our meeting because she has a very busy life at the moment, which I'll no doubt tell you about. But really thrilled that she's come to talk about the work at Singers Hill Synagogue in the middle of Birmingham. So Rachel, I'll allow you to introduce yourself more fully and the work that you do. But thanks so much, and over to you.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Hope that you're well, and I hope that you can hear me clearly. Is everyone able to hear properly? Okay, good, lovely. So my name is Rachel Jacobs. I go by my Hebrew name Rachel, which is the Hebrew of Rachel. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California, and I have been living in Birmingham now for almost 18 years. My husband and I came when we were children to Birmingham, so to say, because I was only 21 when I moved to Birmingham. I was married just a year, and we came especially to Singers Hill for the opportunity of coming to revitalize the community, especially for the youth and all ages, to add some young blood to Singers Hill, which was a synagogue at that point that was over 150 years old. And obviously everyone loved the building and loved the traditions and felt very connected to it. But we were trying to keep the faith, as you say, going for the next generation and to keep things moving and vibrant and alive. And our executive really had the foresight to recognize that a young couple might be able to come and help to revitalize and transform. And that was the reason why we came here. We are from the Lubavitch organization, where young couples do go out once they're married to really be lamplighters in many different places around the world. And we go with the mission of really trying to create Judaism as a place where people can connect to and to add vibrancy to their lives. And it's not about changing people, transforming their whole entire life overnight. It's nothing about that, but it's rather about allowing people to realize that they have a soul within them, they have access to God within them, and that they are able to access Judaism, and that everybody has that same opportunity, from the most religious to the least religious, connected or not. We all have the same relationship with God, and we all have the same ability to really be connected. And that's something that we're really trying to hammer home to people. And the way to connect to God is by doing his commandments, or by having a conversation with God through prayer, and all of these things gives us the opportunity to really connect. And the more that we invest in the relationship with God, the more that we will benefit from it. So a few years into me being here in Birmingham, one of the big opportunities that I noticed, which is quite amazing when you have your own children, is that your own children always force you to actually do more, not less. So when we came here, we were no children, just 21, and my husband was 23. And it wasn't until I was 24 that I had my first child, which is Ari, who was actually born on my birthday, which is very significant, and right before Hanukkah. And we started a Mommy and Me program straight when Ari was born. That was the first thing that I started. And that was where we met as a mother-toddler group, and we met in the synagogue. And we would meet pretty much once every other week, and moms would come. And it was such an amazing, incredible venture, because the setup was simple. I didn't overwhelm it. We had toys, we met in the hall, but moms traveled quite a long distance to come to be together with other moms. And we did Jewish songs and Jewish games and Jewish snacks. And it was just a nice opportunity. And I think especially for moms who have their children, it's very isolating at the beginning when you're home alone a lot with your children, and you're not really meeting people as such because you're not necessarily working or you're on a break. And also, you have this beautiful child in front of you, and you realize that you want to suddenly give everything that you have to this child. And one of the first things that you realize is religion, whether it was important to you before or not, it's actually something that suddenly does become very, very pivotal in our subconscious. And from our subconscious, I think it becomes a conscious decision to try and make an effort to give our children things. So the Mommy and Me became something that was very successful. And we had children that came from Knoll and all the way from Sutton Coldfield and Litchfield, as well as more local. And it's lovely to see because Ari's still friends with a lot of those kids that he went to Mommy and Me with. By the time I had Malky, which was 2 years later, I realized we needed to up the game. And so we started Torah Tots. And Torah Tots is our nursery, which opened up when Malky was 2 years old. So it was about 4 years of planning and organizing and really putting a lot into it because our numbers are very small in Birmingham. So in terms of people having children, we're having maybe 3 to 5 births a year, which means that your intake of children is not a tremendous amount, but it doesn't take away the importance of it. And at the same time, financially, then you're really struggling because anyone who is involved in childcare knows it's a very expensive venture and there's not a very great return. So we definitely lose money on Torah Tots. We try and fundraise independently. I work hard to try and pull the funds together. But the importance of it is something that my executive did share, and we did make a purpose-built room upstairs in the synagogue, which is just Torah Tots space. And we always branded it as Torah Tots, where great things grow. Great things, obviously, being the children, but I think it's even more than the children. I think it's also for our community. Our community grows through Torah Tots because the vibrancy that came into the building with parents coming to bring their kids and pick them up and being part of the atmosphere, it was something that was truly great. And, seeds, just like children, grow towards the light. And the more light that we can give our children and the more vibrancy and fun and enjoyment and excitement, the more they want to be in that atmosphere and that environment. So Mommy and Me merged into Torah Tots, and Torah Tots continued. And we have now been doing Torah Tots for 10 years, thank God. And we've had years where we have 4 children. We've had years where we've had 8 children. We have years when we have 2 children. So, and I've never tried to let it go because I feel even for those 2 children, it's really important. And the longer that I can keep it going, the next year I might be back up to 5 children. So I never really want to ever really let it go just yet. Andrew, I think you have some pictures, so I can show you a little bit of some of what goes on in Torah Tots and talk you through some more points. Okay, so first of all, if we just look through Torah Tots here, most of the pictures are my children because I didn't have enough time to get consent of everybody of asking for pictures or things like that. But if you see on the right, that's my youngest child. She's 2 years old and she is standing. And I love this picture because I think it really represents the idea that she herself is involved in education and that she's really looking herself to grow in her own right. And that's the Hanukkah menorah at the top that the kids have all painted and done themselves. And on the left, we have one of our students who's doing the alphabet puzzle. So the alphabet is the Hebrew alphabet, and just, being able to play through and learn through play is something that's really important. And she actually knows all her alphabet, this girl, which is very unusual and really impressive. Okay, so this is, first of all, what I told you, our brand on the right, Torah Tots, where great things grow. And I just think it's lovely to have a bright, colorful place. And also the slogan, I think is really terrific because Torah Tots, where great things grow. Right away, when you come in and you see that, you already feel that there's some inspiration and there's some purpose. And it's like our mission statement is straight there on the wall because everything that we're trying to do there is to help these children to grow in their education, grow in their confidence, grow in their independence, grow in their friendships with others' children, grow in their relationship with God. And most of all is just to be able to feel that Judaism is part of their lives through songs, through circle time. And I love that that's always there in the background. And if you look on the bottom, we have something called our mitzvah tree. And our mitzvah tree is basically the mitzvahs are good deeds. The good deeds that we do for other people, whether it's helping their mom to load the dishwasher, or whether it's that they tidied up their room, or whether they listened very nicely and went to bed on time. the moms would write notes and we put them on the mitzvah tree. And so you're giving praise to the children for good things that they've done. And you're also explaining to them that one good deed leads to another good deed. And very often in life, we have our roots, which is like the trunk of the tree, which you're not really seeing the roots of the tree. But what we're doing in Torah Tots is really trying to give children very strong roots that will hold them throughout life, that they can know that they can come back to God and that God will be there for them because they've already had a warm introduction to God through fun, jovial songs and singing and playing. And that's something that is really, really important. If we go to the next page, that again is my daughter Esty on the left. And here we have the alphabet again, but the alphabet is for apple. What we're doing here is we're teaching them the alphabet, but we're using a system here where it's phonetic with English words that they're familiar with. So Aleph would be for apple, B is for boy, the vet is for volcano. And what we're trying to do is get the children familiar with the Hebrew alphabet because that's really the key to the beginning of everything, them being able to read eventually and being able to become familiar in the synagogue service. If they know how to read, it really opens and unlocks so much of the synagogue service and their own individual, independent relationship of being able to converse with God. On the picture on the right is circle time, where we gather together with all the children and we do the Jewish songs and we talk about current events and festivals. And if you look very closely, the girl in the blue dress is holding a Torah. That's a little Torah scroll, and she's giving it a kiss because it's something that's very dear and very precious to her. And on my lap, I had like a little basket, and I had asked the children to guess. I had the most precious thing in my little Weaver basket. It's so, so precious, but it's something that all of you have ownership to. And eventually the children, as I give more and more clues, guess that it's the Torah and that it's something that belongs to them. And that's such just a message that becomes part of their conscious and probably subconscious. The next one is, again, just a group of all the children, and they have stuffed Torahs there. We don't usually bring out that scroll. That was for a special occasion, but the stuffed Torahs are things that they use all the time. And, you know, they hug them, they kiss them, they throw them, they toss them, but it's something that is very much a big part of their life, the Torah. And I think that is, oh yes, this is just one of the teachers in Torah Tots who's really helpful and really amazing. And actually, she was only 4 years old when I moved to Birmingham. So it's quite nice. I've actually taught her through the generations. And it's nice now that she's working for us in Torah Tots. I think there's a gray box that's sort of blocking the screen. I don't know if anyone else is noticing it, or is it?
Right.
Yes. Okay, maybe a little bit better. So on that video, this is my daughter again, Elkie, but we're saying the Shema, and the Shema is our like mission statement, most pivotal prayer. And the reason why I included this is I just wanted you to see how she's not only 2 years old. I think she had just literally turned 2 years old here, and she can already cover her eyes properly, which is the part that we do when we're doing concentration. And then we whisper a certain part. And if you look carefully, she's already doing the finger and she's already doing that. And she's 2 years old and she knows a lot of the words. Yeah, maybe we could try and do that video.
Say the Shema right away. Let's go. Shema Yisra Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
You see, she's holding her finger there already. And so that is just something nice to see how the prayers become something that's really paramount to the children. And I think that was all my slides, was it? Yes. Okay, perfect. So I just wanted to say that is Torah Tots, and that's what we're trying to do. We're open now 3 days a week from 9:15 to 12:45. It's not really a child care situation. I mean, it's more than that, it's more about a place where the parents are sending their children to get this love of Torah and love of Judaism. And I think for me, it's a gift to be able to work with children, because I think raising children is not only about who they become, but it's also about who we become in the process. And we ourselves are constantly having to educate ourselves, learn more, work on ourselves more, to be more patient, to be more inspiring, to be more connected, to really try and get down to the children's level and really be able to be empathetic with them, to really respect a child's individuality. These are all skills that we as the grown-ups have to work on in order to really empower the children to be their best selves. And they can only be their best selves if we are coming every day and showing up with our best self. And anyone who works with children knows it's not easy to show up every day with your best self forward. So it really demands a lot of concentration, focus, reminding yourselves what you're really doing this for. And I think that that's something that's really special. And it's quite amazing to know that a lot of the teenagers that we're dealing with today are children who came to our children's services on the Saturday that we have once a month in the synagogue, which is also including children under the age of 5. We also do a cheder, which is like what would be equivalent to Sunday school, where children are coming to learn more about the Bible, but we have a lot of children who are not in Jewish schools, and even children who are in Jewish schools, that every Thursday on Zoom, we do classes for them, and that's also taking place on Zoom. And holiday programs and festival programs and Shabbat programs. All of it is about making the children feel comfortable in the synagogue, letting them know that this is an address that they can come to throughout their whole lives. And the more that we give the children when they're young, the more they will inspire their parents, because when a child goes home with a project that they've made, the parents have to take an interest. And if the children are bringing home homemade bread that we made for the Sabbath, the parents are going to want to make the Friday night dinner to eat that bread. And so and so and so on and on, and it continues. I think that it's really special that you're having this conversation, because faith is something that is hidden unless we really uncover it. And to be able to uncover faith in our children is something that's not just going to last for 1 minute, but will actually end up lasting. You can change a whole world and a lifetime of generations by giving children a very good start in life. So thank you very much for inviting me, and I'm here for any questions.
But I actually began back in my working life as a primary school teacher. I was qualified in early years and Key Stage 1, so very much that lower end of the age range, but moved out of teaching I've suddenly realized this week, 20 years ago this year in 2003, and have done various different roles in that time, but arrived in Knoll about 8-9 years ago and have been here ever since. So that's a little bit about me. In a moment I'm going to start sharing some slides, and I'm going to sort of talk you through how we do under fives work here at Knoll. But first, just a couple of disclaimers. The first one is to say I arrived to an established work. I cannot take the credit for a lot of what runs today. It was established by people who came before me, and I've had the privilege of picking it up, running with it, developing it in places, and looking to see how can we build on that work that is done. So yeah, first disclaimer. The second disclaimer is that we are really aware here at Knoll that we have a big staff team, and we are also very blessed by a very large volunteer team. And so I'm really conscious that as I share tonight around what we do to work with our under fives, it could make everybody go, oh, we can't achieve that because we just don't have the human resource. And so I guess what I'd like to say is kind of pick out the bits that you think actually we could do a bit here, or we could do a bit there, or we could do a bit there, because it isn't possible for everybody to be able to do the same volume of work, because we are very blessed with a very large team. So my two disclaimers before I begin. So I'm just going to share my screen and hope the technology works. Can everybody see that all okay? Wonderful. So anybody that knows me knows that I am a chocoholic. So it's always good to start with a picture of some chocolate cake. But the reason I share that is because as we have worked with our different groups and our projects, we've really come to the conclusion that working with the under fives, sharing faith with the under fives, is all about layers, and any good chocolate cake has lots of layers. Our groups are set up to look at different age and stage of children, but it's also about different levels of faith input. So all through the week, there are different groups running that are about different ages and stages and different layers of faith input. So we have a bumps and babies group, which is very much obviously bumps and babies, which runs up to probably just under a year. Once they're really on the move, crawling and that sort of moving around stage, that's the group that sort of they move on a bit then. So we have a bumps and babies group that runs weekly. We then have what we call our Rainbow Tots group, which is probably more of a traditional stay and play toddler group that most of us would have in mind when we talk about that sort of thing. And that picks up from bumps and babies. So the idea is that when a child gets a bit too big for that group, we can say to mum, but now move on to this group with us. So it's building on to the next age and stage. After that, then we actually have a preschool that we run here at Knoll 3 days a week. And a lot of the children who've come through our Bumps and Babies groups and our Rainbow Tots groups will then go on and join our preschool group that meets 3 times a week. And then they travel on into primary school. So those are the sort of layers that are about age and stage, but we also then slot in some other things that are about more of the faith development. So at our Rainbow Tots group, there will always be a craft and a Bible story that are linked together, but it's very much you can come and choose to do it. You might be off playing with something else while the Bible story goes on, very traditional sort of toddler format. But then we put into it a group called Tots at Pennies, which is one of our other venues. And that's very much more faith focused. So a small group that come to Rainbow Tots come out of that and see us a second time during the week, where actually that is very much, we sit down and we share a Bible story together. We do a craft together where the parents or carers are encouraged to sit down and do that craft individually with their child, taking that kind of faith input through to another level. So we try and look at it of all those different layers of the ages and stages, but then also how do we develop that faith input? And the final element of that is then our Sunday work, where we would see some of the same children come through. And again, we have that split into different age layers and different stages, and they develop what they do across those different layers. So just some keys to working and unlocking work with the under fives. And again, a lot of it might not be groundbreaking information, and it may not be any new information, but it's perhaps just good to remind ourselves that at this age and stage, so much of it is just about the need to feel safe and secure in the space they're in. If they're in that space and they feel safe and secure, they're much more likely to be responsive to what's going on around them, to what's being shared with them. They need to sense that their grown-ups with them feel safe and secure. If you've ever been part or around a toddler group where there's a lot of cliques going on, it can be a very uncomfortable environment. And if the parents or carers are anxious, the children will pick up on that, and they're not going to be as responsive to whatever we might want to share with them. So keeping that sense of everybody feeling safe and secure. Environment needs to catch their attention. Children under 5, as many of you will know, will have what I affectionately describe as a butterfly brain. They see this thing over here, and then they see this thing over here, and then they see this thing over here. And they are just discovering so much about God's world. And anything we can do to help grab their attention helps us to see how they respond. And then again, a variety of activities is just some of the things that we try and think about with any group that we run with the under 5s. How are we doing those separate things? What does faith mean to them? I mean, it can be, you can put this in sort of deep theological terms, or we can simplify it into the words of an under 5. And I opted for that version. I think our children can know that Jesus loves them. What that might mean to them as a 2 or 3 year old may be very different to what it means as a grown up, very different to what it means as their parent, but they can know that Jesus loves them. They can know that they can love God. Again, what that looks like, how that plays out might be very different to how we would see it as grown ups. they watch how their grown-ups love God, and that might be their parents, it might be their carers, it might be the team in the room as they share with you and look after you and provide your toast or your snack or your chocolate biscuit. Watching how the grown-ups around are loving and serving God has such an impact at that age. And as we said, they're discovering God's world, and it's just we'd all love to go back, wouldn't we, where everything is new and everything is an adventure, and that's the beauty of the world of an under 5. All of that beauty that is in God's creation and all that wonderful adventure still to come. So it's, in some ways, they're quite simple statements, but I think they sum up well what we try to, how we try to approach all our work with the under 5s, to remember those key things, that they can know Jesus loves them, they know they can love God, they can watch how the grown-ups around them love God, and they can be discovering God's world. So what do we do? Well, again, it's not probably earth-shattering or groundbreaking information. If any of you are running toddler groups, it will be very, very similar sorts of things. Spaces to just be and to play with all sorts of different toys and all sorts of things to grab their attention. Crafts and stories often linked together, and as I said, with those ones where the faith input is at a slightly higher level, that goes to a slightly different level. Songs, most of the time in our groups we will try and mix a sort of, the nursery night rhyme type songs, but also with some very simple Christian lyric songs to start just getting those messages through. But again, where the faith input is slightly higher and those parents and carers know that, the input is slightly different in those. Snacks, everybody loves snacks, don't they? So and sensory experience, their development is really key. And then that last thing, consistency is important, but yet also there needs to be variety. Major contradiction, but actually for a child to come into the same space every week and think, yes, actually the big cars are always over there and the Play-Doh's always over there and the snacks are always over there. There's something really safe about that for them, but actually it's not the same every week. It's not exactly the same, because that engagement of discovering God's world is a really key part of their personal development, and their faith development comes in to that. How do they respond? Well, under 5s are unpredictable, and some days they're just not feeling it. So it doesn't matter what you've done, it doesn't matter how great your craft was, it doesn't matter how wonderful your singing was, they're still laying on the floor saying, I'm not having it today. Or they can just take in everything you're saying and be right there with you. And I think that's one of the challenges of working with under 5s, remembering that their response isn't necessarily a reflection of what we have provided or how they are engaging with what we are doing. What they actually take in may be very, very different to what they appear to be taking in. And I think sometimes we think, oh gosh, it's all on me to make sure these children hear about God, to know about God, to make sure that they grow up in this faith. And actually we forget that God is the one doing the work and we're planting the seeds. And those seeds are being planted, whether they're laying on the floor having a tantrum or whether they're smiling very angelically at you. It can be, they can be absorbing far more than we can ever imagine. And you can come back to them and have conversations with them a few days later, and they can amaze you at what they have recalled and remembered. So how do they respond? Like anyone, it can be mixed, but that's part of the challenge of working with under 5s, which leads us nicely on to what are some of the more bigger challenges for us. We do find, like many, I'm sure, that with these sorts of groups, there can be a regular contact. You can see somebody for 2 or 3 weeks in a row, and then they might be gone again for 4 weeks, and then they might come back again because it's not necessarily their priority. And so that can be tricky. Because of, as I said earlier, we do try and work sort of through layers. Actually, when you move from one group to the next, that transition, you can lose people in those transitions. If we're trying to encourage parents to follow up what we've done in the groups and take that home, maybe some of our groups are very, very much attended by grandparents bringing their children or by childminders bringing their children, and they are actually not the ones at home to follow that up. So that can be a challenge, and then encouraging that follow up at home, however that might look like. So all of our work is under the umbrella of Connect. We call it Connect, and the basis of that is we want the children to connect to their grown-ups well, whoever's bringing them along. We want them to connect to the other grown-ups they meet in the space. We want them to connect to the other children and build some of those lifelong those friendships, and ultimately to connect with God, but built up through years of working with them in lots of different ways. So I think, yes, there we go. That's about me. Let me
Excellent.
just stop sharing. That will help it. There we go.